This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the division after 8 years. Panicking under pressure from MPs in a region where he's plummeting in the polls, he'd paused the tax for some people in some places, but his minister said that other people should have voted Liberal if they wanted the same break. Now the panicking Prime Minister is further dividing the country with the confirmation from his Environment Minister that he's now in a coalition with the Bloc, the Separatist Party. So, we have a costly carbon tax coalition that includes the Separatists. What did he promise the Separatists to get them to sign on to keeping him in power for 2 more years?
Le très honorable Premier ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Only division in this country as to whether or not we should be doing everything we can to fight climate change is within the Conservative Party. The Canadians are unequivocal that we need to fight climate change and we need to support Canadians through that. That's why our price on pollution returns hundreds of dollars every 3 months to the average family of 4 while fighting climate change and watching our curve bend faster over the past 2 years than the other G7 countries. We will continue to hold Canadians together as we fight climate change while Conservatives continue to bring us backwards.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's own Environment Commissioner confirmed he will not hit his own targets, and the Prime Minister has admitted that his carbon tax is not worth the cost for oil-heated homes. Now, he did that as to save his political hide, but his desperation went one step further this week when he relied on the Separatists to vote with him to quadruple the tax on home heating for everyone else in Canada. So the question is very clear. What did he promise the Separatists to get their support to save his political hide and quadruple his tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no matter how much the Conservatives try to deny it, every single day in this country we get closer to never using coal to generate electricity again. And now, Mr. Speaker, we're choosing to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier, more expensive, and disproportionately relied on by lower-income Canadians. The Conservatives may try to make up all the stuff they like, but the reality is replacing home heating oil is good for Canadians when we put in heat pumps, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, he hasn't eliminated coal-fired electricity. He hasn't eliminated oil-powered heating in homes, and his carbon tax will not allow him to meet his own GHG targets, according to his Environment Commissioner. Now, that is the reality, that his carbon tax is not worth the cost. And that's why people, all 10 premiers, Conservative, Liberal, and NDP, are calling for him to take the tax off so Canadians will keep the heat on. Will he be fair to all Canadians, or will he sign on with the Separatists to divide our country some more?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I have to admit I'm a little worried for the Leader of the Opposition. When he has to stoop to bringing up the separatist boogeyman to try and scare Canadians, he must be running out of material. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are afraid of climate change. They're afraid of the extreme weather events. They're afraid of the concerns we have about a brighter future. And what we are doing is fighting climate change every day while we build a stronger economy with greater careers, while we support Canadians every single day with the high cost of living. This is what we're delivering. He has no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Prime Minister repeated the government's stance regarding asking Israel for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And this stance has been called for many countries and organizations across the world. But Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening to repeated calls for a ceasefire. even Anthony Blinken's calls. So Israel's attitude is truly deplorable. Would the Prime Minister agree that it's time to call for a ceasefire? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are asking for a humanitarian pause. That would help get the hostages out of Israel, out of the Gaza Strip, as well as others who are citizens of other countries out of Gaza. And it would also allow for humanitarian aid to get to Gaza. We need, in order to get humanitarian help, to support that. We need to support a two-state solution. We need to put an end to all this conflict, because the images we're seeing on TV every night are heartbreaking to Canadians and to everyone in the world. We need to continue to work for the peace and security of all. For Burnaby South.
The Liberal and Conservative corporate coalition may strike again today.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Most tragic and heartbreaking to see these two squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister was so disappointed in the NDP leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax. This, with 2 million Canadians, a record smash. Prime Minister, these two squabbles.
We hope the NDP will join us once again. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Most tragic and heartbreaking to see these two squabbling in this way. The Prime Minister was so disappointed in the NDP leader's flip-flop on carbon tax for heat, but the good news for the Prime Minister is the NDP leader has flip-flopped on his flip-flop and now supports the Prime Minister's plan to quadruple the tax. This, with 2 million Canadians, a record-smashing number going to a food bank. Will the Prime Minister create another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers so that Canadians can afford to eat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know, Mr. Speaker, that farmers are always focused on being good stewards of the land, and we are working with them in investing, in supporting them in many different ways to ensure that we can continue to put good quality, affordable food on people's tables right across the country, and that's what we're going to continue to do, Mr. Speaker. Farmers and indeed Canadians from coast to coast to coast know that as we fight climate change, as we put more money in people's pockets every 3 months with hundreds of dollars with the pollution price return, we're going to continue to step up in building a strong economy for tomorrow, something the Conservatives simply don't understand.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is quadrupling his carbon tax on the farmers who make the food, quadrupling the tax on the truckers who ship the food, therefore quadrupling the tax on all who buy the food. Good news is there is a common sense Conservative bill that's passed through the House and in the Senate where the Prime Minister's senators are holding it up. Will the Prime Minister once again cave and allow another carve-out on the carbon tax for farmers? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Many people living in rural areas across the country, including many farmers, continue to be stuck heating their homes with home heating oil. It is dirtier, it is more expensive, and it is something that is expensive to replace. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we are stepping up with measures that are going to deliver heat pumps to families right across the country, the 1.2 million households across this country, in every part of this country, relying on home heating oil, so we can help them fight climate change and save money at the same time. That's our plan. The Conservatives have no plan.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Our common sense plan is found in Bill C-234, which would give another carve-out to farmers on the carbon tax. And the Prime Minister has claimed that he won't cave again. He says there will be no more carve-outs. We're asking him to keep in mind there are 2 million people who have to go to the food bank every month because of his policies. Will he put his ego and pride aside and ask his Liberal senators to pass Common Sense Bill C-324 to axe the tax and create a carbon tax carve-out for our farmers.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, farmers across this country know the costs of climate change. They know the costs of extreme weather events, whether it be floods or fires or more intense storms. Farmers are worried about their future, worried about their kids' future, worried about the country's future. That's why we put forward a plan that is reducing our emissions and growing our economy at the same time while putting more money in Canadians' pockets. The Conservatives have no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for future generations. We will continue to do what's necessary to support Canadians, including farmers, long into the future.
That's it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister won't answer a simple question. It's about the Common Sense Conservative bill to carve out farming from the carbon tax. But I understand why he feels he's in a bind, because his Environment Minister said, as long as I am Environment Minister, there will be no more exceptions to carbon pricing. That implies that he would resign if there was another carve-out. Will the Prime Minister sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister and support our common sense bill to take the tax off?
If I could...
Crazy carbon tax.
The colleagues, all colleagues should know that we cannot use language which calls into question the character of honourable members, individual members. I hear an explanation from the Leader of the Opposition, and I will repeat that so that we can clarify the record. The Leader of the Opposition made a correction saying that he was referring to the policy and not the person. So, but that's certain. And I thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition for making that clarification, because otherwise that language would clearly be unparliamentary. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think we'll all be waiting for a long list of corrections and factual errors from the Leader of the Official Opposition if we go down this road. The fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker, for millions of Canadians who understand that climate change poses an existential threat to our country, to our well-being, to our economy, they need action. They expect a government with a plan. They expect a government to deliver on that plan, and that is exactly what we have been doing for 8 years. Meanwhile, the only plan the Conservatives put forward are cuts. Cuts to services, cuts to program, cuts to rebates for Canadians, and yes, cuts to the most successful measure to reduce climate change emissions that this country has ever seen. When is he going to come forward with a real plan?
Mr. Speaker, with or without glasses, I will not lose $54 million on an app that doesn't work. This is a Prime Minister whose government is now under RCMP investigation for giving out contracts to firms that did absolutely no work. Now senior members of the bureaucracy are blowing the whistle and saying his top officials lied about it before committee. Will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police in this latest criminal investigation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't help but wondering how many millions of dollars Canadians would have lost if they had followed the Leader of the Opposition's advice and bought Bitcoin so they could opt out of inflation. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to serious matters, both the RCMP and CBSA's Professional Integrity Division are investigating. The CBSA has also launched an internal audit to look into contracting at the agency and has increased oversight processes when it comes to the contracting.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the former director of CBSA, our principal border authority, said that he felt incredibly threatened, those were his words, by the former president of the organization. And senior bureaucracy, members of the Prime Minister's bureaucracy, are to have lied, according to this testimony, in order to cover up this $54 million scandal. The matter is now under Auditor General and RCMP investigation. Will the Prime Minister cooperate with the police, yes or no?
Minister.
Speaker, obviously the reports coming out are extremely concerning, and I know that the respective authorities will be taking this extremely seriously. We expect our professional public servants to always conduct themselves with the utmost integrity, and I'm sure that will continue to happen.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the entire government only takes direction from a guy who has 2 convictions for breaking the law, Mr. Speaker. And in this case, it's not just $54 million. There's $11 million given to a two-person IT firm to do absolutely nothing. The same firm has gotten $60 million from this Liberal government since 2017 alone. The entire matter is under criminal investigation. So for a third time, will the Prime Minister personally cooperate with the police, yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You can understand that I won't take overly seriously the accusations from an individual who was Minister of Elections when he was found to break elections law. Mr. Speaker, when we see matters of wrongdoing, we ensure that proper authorities are looking into it, and of course our government will always ensure full cooperation with investigating authorities.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister is a man of conviction. He's got 2 of them, Mr. Speaker. He actually doubled the amount of money spent on outside consultants after promising to bring it down. When we pressured him on this, he said, I know what I'll do. I'll pay $670,000 to another consulting firm to find out how we can spend less money on consulting firms. Here's some free common sense advice. And will he take it? Why not just stop spending on juicy contracts for his friends?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, of course we need to ensure that we're getting the best value for funds spent in the public service, and the Minister agrees and is looking into it. But Mr. Speaker, let's talk about being a person of conviction. I am convinced that we need to fight climate change. I am convinced that the only thing we can do to build a strong economy for the future is protect the environment and fight climate change while putting more money in people's pockets. These are my convictions, and I've continued to be consistent on them over the past 15 years I've been in politics. We look forward to hearing what the Leader of the Opposition believes in, because right now it sure ain't clear.
Chef de l'Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Recording of a top Liberal government official reveals that the $1 billion green fund the Prime Minister is running is not worth the cost or the corruption. Some extracts from that recording. It was free money, sponsorship level kind of giveaway. And I quote, since the Prime Minister learned of these allegations in March, he hasn't fired a single solitary person. This is a $1 billion slush fund. Wow. Is he worried about firing the insiders because he doesn't want them to blow the whistle on this broader Liberal scandal?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, earlier this year, ISED was made aware of allegations of mismanagement at SDTC. The Auditor General has now decided to conduct an audit of SDTC, and our government has been working closely with them on this and welcome the decision. In addition, SDTC has agreed to enable a thorough third-party review of the allegations regarding HR management, and we're committed to ensuring organizations which receive federal funding adhere to the highest standards of governance.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This is a $1 billion taxpayer-funded slush fund that top officials now say amounts to a sponsorship scandal kind of corruption. It says they were giving away free money. This at a time when a record-smashing 2 million people are forced to food banks every month, when 9 out of 10 people can't afford homes. How could the Prime Minister have thought it appropriate to blow $1 billion when Canadians cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to be perfectly clear. Any allegation of wrongdoing in any government department must be fully investigated. There are established processes for situations such as these, and this is precisely why the Auditor General has made the decision to conduct an audit. This is a serious situation, and we are taking it with the seriousness with which it requires. Unfortunately, the Conservatives, as usual, are looking for a way to score cheap partisan points. We are going to continue to govern responsibly.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There's nothing cheap about losing $1 billion, Mr. Speaker. That's exactly why he's not worth the cost. He sees no problem throwing away $54 million on an ArriveCan app that didn't work and we didn't need and is now under criminal investigation. And now, 6 months after he learned of corruption, cronyism, and mismanagement in this $1 billion fund, he has kept his hand-picked cronies in the position. Mr. Speaker, if he really thinks it's serious that this $1 billion fund had so much corruption, why won't he fire the people running it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a country of rules and laws, and that's why we need to make sure that we are doing proper investigations and ensuring appropriate consequences for any people involved in wrongdoing. This is how a country of laws and rules functions. Unfortunately, Conservatives are still choosing to make cheap partisan points on very serious issues, and we're going to continue to take these issues seriously.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member from Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker,
Reads the following.
Contributions of Indigenous veterans haven't ensured that I'd like to thank the communities like did in
The United Kingdom's Foreign Office has given travel advice to its citizens, which reads the following. The risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely. End quote. Does the Prime Minister agree with the UK Foreign Office's assessment, and what is he doing to protect Canadians from such an attack?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a robust and sophisticated process around determining levels of threats to Canadians. We elevated the level of threat back in 2012 to medium, and it stays there right now. We are continuing to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to keep Canadians safe. We understand these are trying times around the world right now, but the best thing we can do as Canadians is stay true to our values, be respectful of one another, feel each other's pain, and be there to support through very difficult times of a rise in hatred, including Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Terrorists are not interested in feeling other people's pain, they're interested in causing other people pain. And the UK Foreign Office has said, and I quote, the risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely, end quote. Yet the Canadian government rates that risk at medium. Why the difference?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously I can't speak how other countries make their determinations on travel advisories, but I can say that the work is done daily in Canada to assess the threat level to Canadians and what can be communicated to keep them safe. We elevated the threat level to medium in 2014, Mr. Speaker, and it has remained at that level since. But every single day we reevaluate and ensure that we are doing everything we can, privately and publicly, to keep Canadians safe.
Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And yet, if you simply read the UK Foreign Department's assessment of Canada, and I quote, "The risk of terrorist attacks happening in Canada is very likely," end quote, then there is a very serious risk, Mr. Speaker. Why did Canadians have to learn from a foreign government about an increasing threat of terrorism in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, once again, I can't speak to how the UK makes its determinations, but I certainly can say that in Canada we have top security agencies and officials who work daily to reassess the threat levels to Canadians. They are working every single day to keep Canadians safe, and will continue to keep Canadians informed on the best ways to keep safe, Mr. Speaker.
Here.